Well, hello everyone. My name is Bill Lang on behalf of Small Business Australia and Business Advantage and our partners. I'd like to welcome you all to today's Business Advantage webinar. Let's talk a little bit about the concept of superior perceived value. Now, many of you have probably heard of this thing called the USP, particularly those of you with smaller businesses. At some point in time, an advisor or someone you've been following online or a book that you've read has talked about the need for a unique selling proposition and that every business must have a unique selling proposition. Now, that's very good in theory, but the reality is that, many businesses with respect to either the physical products or the services they deliver are ultimately delivering or aim to deliver the same set of benefits to the customers. And so it's difficult to have a unique selling proposition when increasingly there are many, many competitors that are offering a similar set of benefits to the same customers that you'd be targeting your business. A much more powerful concept is something known as superior perceived value, SPV, and it's much, much better in practice. I remember many years ago, in fact, it's 30 years since I graduated from the Harvard Business School. And one of the beauties of the experience at the Harvard Business School is we often have people would come to class after we've been discussing a particular issue in their business and to tell us, what was going on. And one day we had Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft, come to class. And he made the following comment, and it has stuck with me today. And I think it applies more than ever, particularly with some of the various digital notions, lotions, and potions that are out there running around on the internet on what the key factors for success are. And what Bill Gates said to us was the following. He said that in theory, there is no difference between theory and practice. However, in practice, there is. And so this concept of superior perceived value is a very important one for us all to focus on, rather than being distracted by value propositions, unique selling propositions, key selling points, pain points, and a whole range of other pieces of jargon that are used, when ultimately every customer is making a decision about what to buy and who to buy it from based on their perceptions of what will give them superior value. Now, let's have a little bit of a chat about a simple formula that can be applied in any business with respect to superior perceived value. And think about things that you may have purchased recently, and perhaps it's not something you buy, every week, but you decided that you needed something for your home office. Let's say, for example, a bigger monitor or a higher powered computer and higher powered processor. At the end of the day, whenever we make a decision to buy anything from someone, we've got this calculation going on. We're basically getting a sense of, well, what are the benefits? What benefits am I going to get? And what's the quality of those benefits that I'm going to receive? Those two things together, minus what am I paying? What is the price? What's the cost to me? And so superior perceived value is all about ensuring that what you're offering to your target market, in their mind, represents superior value, that the benefits and the quality of those benefits minus the price is the highest that's available to them when they're looking at various options as to who they might buy. Now, with some items where the risk is very low, the price is very low, they might make very instant decisions. They might very quickly come to the conclusion. It may well be that the convenience of that product at 7-Eleven, even though it's 35% more than going to Woolworths and buying it there, but they value convenience in that moment. They're prepared to pay a slightly higher price, but the benefit of the convenience, the immediate access, overrides the additional time to walk to Woolworths, as an example. So customers, even after, and as we continue to deal with the pandemic in Australia, still are after the same thing in terms of superior perceived value. But the benefits and the quality that they're seeking might now be very different based on whether they're a business, whether they're an individual citizen buying something for themselves or their family, and depending upon what the product or service type is. Now, I just want to spend a couple of minutes to look at the difference between physical goods and services. And this is a little bit of research that I've been doing recently. I use Android-powered phones. I know those of you listening in that use iOS and have all your devices in the Apple orchard are shaking your head at me. But nevertheless, I live out there in the Android world with respect to my devices. And I've been contemplating recently whether I go for the new Samsung 5G phone that's a flip phone. So I did a quick little search via Google on the weekend in preparing for this webinar. Now, the thing with physical goods is they typically will come in a box. And a whole range of different things are potentially relevant when I think about the benefits and how those benefits get delivered to me and what the quality is and what's the price and cost. So the sorts of things that are relevant are things like packaging, physical delivery. Is it going to be delivered to me and when? What will the tracing and tracking be like? What's the guarantee associated with the product? What if I need to take it back if there's a warranty issue? Like, where will I go? Will I get a replacement telephone from the retailer I've got it from? How will they repair it? How will returns work? The brand of the retailer might be quite important. What are the payment options? How can I pay for this particular thing? But here's an example of what just crops up. So when I put in the Galaxy, I think it's called a Fold, into Google on the weekend, in Google Shopping, these were the following results that came up. So JB Hi-Fi, Harvey Norman, so there's a couple of brands that all of us know, the good guys. One here called Jack Deal, free delivery with Jack Deal. Bectex Australia, with $75 delivery. So you see a range of different prices here. And this is the actual of the price. Then you've got to add the delivery to get the total price. Now, I'm just giving you, this is an example because these days, of course, it's incredibly easy for any customer, whether it's someone buying for their business or buying for themselves or their family as an individual, to very quickly compare, what the price is, what the shipping costs will be. But you'll see with respect to all these areas here are also important in terms of perceived value. And if I take someone like Jack Deal, and I've done searches in the past where a company like Jack Deal would come up and be 10% cheaper. They could be up there at the top. And I go, wow, that's good. I can save $100 on this thing. But then when I go across and have a little bit of a look at Jack Deal is just an online site, and it's got a high level of reviews and a 4.5-star rating. But if something goes wrong with this phone, what am I going to have to do? Well, first of all, it's coming from Hong Kong. 852 is the Hong Kong international dialing code. So I'm going to have to call them up there, or I can send them an email there. So when I think about, what's the price or cost going to be of dealing with Jack Deal, if something goes wrong, it's not going to be as convenient as potentially, walking it back into JB Hi-Fi or Harvey Norman, being able to speak with a human being there that's actually in the store and potentially being able to give it back. So that's in the area of physical goods. And I know a number of you are in the service industry. So let's talk a little bit about the differences now between physical goods and services and what that means from the perspective of superior perceived value for the customer. With respect to looking at services, the perceived value of a service, the formula is a little bit different for the customer when they're making decisions. Again, benefits are important and also quality. But in fact, in this case, you could actually divide it by the cost rather than subtracting the cost. Now, the cost is more than the price. The cost could also include how much time is actually involved in me trying to buy it and then actually accessing the service. Let's say it's having an appointment for a telehealth consultation with a doctor. What is the availability? Recently, I wasn't feeling that well and wanted to see my doctor reasonably urgently, and went online and found in the end, I couldn't get an appointment via online booking for 48 hours, which then led me to get on the phone and ring him up, in fact, on his personal mobile number. There's also another cost, which is around possible uncertainty with respect to how confident I am in the ability of the service provider to deliver the service. Now, I want to share with you a key formula been very well researched across multiple types of services, from health services, legal services, property services, human resource related services, in terms of quality and the sorts of things that ultimately make up quality in the mind of customers for services. So the formula for service is known as RATER, R-A-T-E-R. And the first R is reliability, the A is assurance, the T is tangibles, E is for empathy, and R is for responsiveness. Now, for those of you that are in the services business, you market, you sell and deliver services. As I sort of explain what the different elements of RATER are, you might be thinking about, well, yeah, what do we do? Do we do something in these areas? And just taking a few notes as you go through. So reliability is overwhelmingly the most important thing. You know, will the product, in particular the service element here, actually meet my expectations? One of the biggest mistakes that the majority of service providers make is they do not manage the expectations of the target customers. They do not spend enough time in setting appropriate expectations that will enable them to exceed those expectations in terms of how the service gets delivered. So expectation management is critical with services. There's also assurance around, can I trust them? What's my level of confidence in them with respect to their ability to deliver? Then there's what are called tangibles. So the T is tangibles. The physical experience meets expectations. Are they coming into your physical offices, into your health clinic? Are they dealing with you now via Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Meet? What's the look and feel and the quality of that experience like in terms of the tangibility of it? Empathy is around customer understanding, and ideally understanding the customer better than the customer understands him or herself, in terms of what is going on in the mind of the customer. What might they be expecting? How do we set realistic expectations? How do we point out a couple of the things that may be in the back of their mind that we're aware of those things and we've got ways of actually dealing with them? This area of empathy in particular and assurance, the demands now from many customers are much, much higher as a result of the impact of the pandemic and what that's doing with respect to people's life experience, their level of stress, and therefore the expectations that they now have and the level of trust that they're looking for. And then the final R in RATER is responsiveness. Someone asks a question, how quickly do you get back to them? Someone's got on a service-related website an automated bot that pops up and wants to start talking to you, but then doesn't seem to really understand the question that's being asked. I note with a lot of interest that one of our corporate partners, Telstra, have recently announced that they're going to reduce now the use of those bots on their website. They're going to move the majority of their contact center operators that have been working in offshore contact centers back to Australia, so that they've got people in Australia that have a better understanding of what the customers in Australia are experiencing, and that often talking with someone to sort through something is way, way, way superior, as opposed to having a bot pop up, a chat bot starting to talk to you and ask you all these questions and getting you increasingly frustrated. So it's interesting seeing a company like Telstra, who do significant research in understanding customers' needs and expectations, are moving down that path. And I'd like to congratulate Telstra for doing that. I want to share with you now some work and a framework from one of the most sort of historically famous psychological researchers and thinkers known as Abraham Maslow. So some of you may be aware of this from past work that you've done, perhaps with marketers, or past experience at TAFE or in university. But Maslow developed this conceptual framework, and never has it been more important with respect to understanding human beings and what they're going through. He called it sort of a hierarchy of needs, and that people basically, depending on their life situation and their resources, are at different levels in terms of what are the most important needs that they're dealing with. Now, I'm just going to very quickly talk through this and explain it, and then give you a sense of some of the shifts that have been going on with respect to customers as a result of the pandemic. You know, a big fancy word here, physiological, which at the end of the day is about physical needs. You know, the most basic need is food. If you don't have food, you need it. You need water. You know, if you're in cold climates, you need access to warmth. You need the ability to be able to rest and recharge and give all of the bodily systems in your mind a break. So physical needs. Then we move up into sort of safety. So if we've got these key physiological needs met, the next level then is around a level of safety and a level of security. So, you know, it's very obvious, you know, that there's particular groups, you know, of Australians where this is now very, very at a very acute level, particularly if you're older, if you've got a number of other health-related challenges. You know, if you happen to be, you know, in certain suburbs in Melbourne, certain suburbs in Sydney at the moment, those needs are much, much higher for that group of people today than what they were, let's say, 18 months before the pandemic started. You know, if your safety needs are pretty much being met, you know, the next one then is around the quality of relationships, you know, having quality friends. You don't necessarily need the 1,000 on Facebook, but 2, 3, half a dozen good quality friends, intimate relationships, you know, if you're in an intimate partnership with someone. So the need from a psychological perspective to belong and be a part of something and have people that you care about, that you love, that love you and that understand you and your world. If you're fortunate to be in a situation, and not everyone is, where these needs are being met, we then move up into a level of sort of esteem, feeling that you're accomplishing things, you're working towards important goals, you have a particular purpose, that you're acknowledged by other people with respect to what you're doing, what your skills are, where you work, what your accomplishments have been. So we've got esteem, and then finally self-actualization, which is, you know, sort of the top of the pyramid. And certainly, you know, the physical space being taken up here is in no way a representation of what percentage of the population is at what area here. But, you know, self-actualization, when Maslow, you know, conducted his surveys and got a sense back then as to where people were, the self-actualizers were, you know, at best 5 or 6% of the overall population in Western countries. So really feeling that you are, you know, pursuing your calling, working in an area you care about, doing your best work, using your maximum skills. Now, different Australians in different parts of Australia of different ages, different family situations, different levels of income security, you know, are very much at different levels. We've had a whole bunch of people, you know, that have moved, you know, between these areas here. Lockdowns. I'm based in Melbourne, for those of you that don't know. So, you know, we're at the 81st day of the 6th lockdown that we've had in Melbourne. There's been significant challenges with respect to friendships, relationships across the board. So, you know, I can, you know, say that there are, you know, probably a greater proportion of Melburnians much more challenged in this area here than, say, people that are based in Adelaide or based in Brisbane or based in Perth. So people are moving around, you know, people that are having financial support withdrawn, they've lost their jobs. A number of small business owners are suffering incredible challenges with respect to, you know, their physical needs and the financial viability of their businesses, which means their personal income and their family income is hit. And at Small Business Australia, we've been working with a number of those business owners that have got significant challenges. But there are some other business owners that are in, say, the IT area, that were already well automated and well digitized and provide digital services. 20-odd% of the small businesses in Australia are growing quite dramatically. They've never seen the growth like they've had before. Their businesses are stronger. So when you think about your own customers and who you're targeting, you know, if they are different based on where they might be psychologically, where they're located, etc., in terms of your empathy with them, your understanding of their needs and where they're at with respect to their basic needs and their psychological needs, that will have an enormous impact if you can demonstrate your awareness and your ability to vary how you go about your communication with them, to demonstrate that understanding and empathy, and then with respect to what it is that you've got that might be able to assist them given, you know, where they're at. The next one that I want to talk a little bit about are business owners. And so this is some research that MYOB have recently shared with us, and I'd like to thank the team at MYOB for sharing it. So if you've got businesses at the moment that serve other businesses, at a really high level, here's what's going on. So when asked the question about, do you think you'll spend more, the same or less, and in what particular areas of your business, at least half of the businesses out there in Australia, when they think about customers, which covers marketing and advertising activities to attract and retain customers, products that would be offered, so potentially extending the types of products that they're offering, reviewing their pricing. A number of input costs are going up. We're about to see inflation. IT is another core area where a number of businesses are going, yeah, I'm definitely spending the same. In fact, I'm going to be spending more. And I'll just point some of these out because I know that some of you are actually involved in some of these sectors. So this whole question of pricing of products and looking to improve the margins that are being earned. So investing effort in market research, doing experiments, changing marketing collateral to to communicate changes in pricing. 30% of businesses are planning to invest more time and money in doing that over the next 12 months. Retaining customers and acquiring customers, 28 and 27%. A bunch of businesses have struggled from the start of the pandemic because they actually didn't know electronically the names of their customers, their email addresses, and their mobile phone numbers. So they've actually had, beyond maybe posting something on social media or putting it on their website, all those customers being able to physically visit their business. And most of these businesses in places like Melbourne have actually been closed or ring those businesses up. They haven't been able to communicate with their customers. Whereas those businesses that had invested in that digital customer information and relationship and communication management ability have been in a much stronger position to let them know how the business has pivoted. For example, here in Carlton, where I live, we have a cinema. And it's got a membership group, so they send out loyalty cards and they've got email addresses, they've got SMS numbers. They started during the lockdowns to let people know they could at least come in and get the choc top and some popcorn. You couldn't go and see a movie during the lockdown, but they were able to communicate with those people that they had the contact details for. Hey, we're open on Saturday afternoon between the following hours. Come in and get your favorite choc top. Come and get your popcorn. Then they started also streaming some of the movies that they had access to that weren't available on the mainstream streaming services. But they had the ability to communicate with those customers where they had those contact details. We're already seeing in a range of industries issues around staff shortages, mainly as a result of international students and migrant workers not being available in the country, and as well as a number of employees not wanting to work in particular industries because of the higher risk and uncertainty around how much work will be available in hospitality, in tourism, in events-related industries and some creative industries. So we're already seeing that business owners are expecting they're going to need to do this. And so if you're in the HR recruitment services type area, you can expect to see some growth happening there. Spending more on marketing and advertising, selling more online, selling more offline. So again, ultimately increasing investment in marketing and sales related activity. For those of you that need to do that, there are some terrific things inside the know-how area around building sales skills, improving the sales and service relationship management skills of your team. A variety of products and services I've mentioned, working with advisors, so accountants and coaches to improve the business, and investment in IT systems and processes. So, there's a number, albeit on average sort of under 10% that are going to probably spend less in those areas. Call it 50% are going to spend the same, but there's a good chunk, between sort of, 20 and 30%, they're going to be spending more money in these areas. And if they're in lockdown now, some of these businesses in recent weeks where they haven't been as busy with customers, they're online, they're doing their research, they're talking to their current advisors. We're certainly seeing a lot of people take advantage of some of the savings offers that Business Advantage members get on IT, on help with, upgrading websites, etc. In terms of more sort of overall the area of benefits that people are seeking and the attributes or the features of products and services that people are looking for. This is particularly relevant for individuals, for citizens that are buying things for themselves, for their family. So in terms of the pandemic impact, and I mentioned this, very briefly before, the impact of the pandemic and how various governments have responded to the pandemic very much varies by which state, whereabouts in the state you are, what your occupation is if you're an employee, or the sort of industry that you're in if you're a business, what your stage of life is. I was only recently on a webinar with the market research manager of one of our corporate partners at Small Business Australia. She's got two young children, primary school. She lives in a 2-bedroom apartment, and she's doing her meetings on Microsoft Teams from her laundry. She's based in Melbourne, and the additional challenges of the children not being able to go to school has had an enormous impact on her, mental health and state of mind in terms of what she and her partner are juggling with respect to looking after and attempting to homeschool the children while also holding down her important professional job, for a large corporate where all of her colleagues around the country are working remotely. So safety is very much an attribute, but the benefit is peace of mind. Everyone is looking for increased peace of mind, and therefore they look to elements of or attributes of safety, keeping them physically safe, emotionally safe, mentally safe in terms of what's going on in terms of their cognitive processes. Again, the level of financial stress varies enormously. It's particularly acute in particular types of small businesses along the border areas, particularly the Murray River border area, that relies upon mainly visitors from Melbourne with respect to tourism and the visitor economy. The city of Melbourne, we had about 18,000 registered businesses in the city of Melbourne at the start of the pandemic. There's significant challenges taking place for many of those business owners and their families. Family social fabric. There are different points of view happening on the political spectrum. Most of us aren't really wired into any particular political party, but we may have family members that are particularly keen on one colour T-shirt of one political party. So they have different views around how various management of the pandemic's taking place, various varying levels of support for helping businesses, for helping people who have lost their jobs. So there's increased stress going on, sadly, in the level of at some families. And then also at the community social fabric level. So any number of different subgroups of Australians have been experiencing different levels of challenges with respect to what's going on. So we've all got the impact that's having on ourselves. And I know with our webinars and the coaching that I do personally with a number of business owners, for all of you that are business owners, nothing's more important than your personal, physical and mental health. And if in any way you're concerned and challenged, you must take advantage of the range of services that are now available so that you can get some assistance and work your way through it. But the best chance for your business to survive and thrive is through your personal health. For those of you with children and with partners, your personal leadership of your families couldn't be more important. So the critical nature of your personal health as business owners and family leaders, I can't reinforce and emphasize enough. Now, something else that's going on, which is absolutely awful. I think I've had 3 of these now in the last 24 hours. I've counted them in terms of people attempting to get me to track a parcel or to ensure that the ATO is going to send the refund to my correct bank account. My parents-in-law and my father are in their 80s. The unsolicited phone calls that they're getting looking to scam them. So it was recently reported that for the first 9 months of this year, there's been 213,000 scams reported. Now, there's a number of scams that don't get reported in Australia, but 213,000 people have, basically phoned up the various ombudsmen and reported it. It's either happened online via email or SMS or voice telephone calls. Now, the average loss for those ones that are reported is $11,000. Now, for many, many Australians, that is a big chunk of money. Now, in last year, for the full calendar year, it was $7,000. So it's gone up, 4,000 on average. And then the concept of what's called phishing, and that's where people effectively set up dummy websites and dummy apps and a range of other things that looks pretty legitimate. And these days, with the software that's available for next to nothing, anyone can create a website that looks really good, and it can copy other websites. So it's so difficult to be able to work out what the fakes are versus, the real thing. So increasingly now there's uncertainty, there's fear, doubt around people that are calling up people unsolicited, sending them emails, because people, are getting sucked in. So easy to click on a link to see where that parcel is. What did I order? A lot of people in Sydney and Melbourne, particularly over the last, 8 to 10 weeks, have been ordering things online. Maybe they've ordered 2 or 3 things. Then we hear that sort of Australia Post is, overloaded, so they've stopped deliveries for a week or so. So it's just so easy without thinking to click on those links. And I'd encourage you to always be educating your family members and also your employees around not to click on any of these things, not to answer the phone. There's a big role for all of us to particularly educate our family and friends that aren't as close to this as we all need to be in our businesses, and given the increasing importance of digital infrastructure. But that's another important role for us. But it's another thing that's increasing, the sense of fear, the sense of uncertainty. So we've already seen then with respect to attributes or features that are being, amplified and reinforced in marketing and advertising to individuals, these concepts around safety, around hygiene, being touchless, that the information's available online in a mobile-friendly way, that I can shop, find out information, order, I can pay, and there's different ways that I can pay. It's really easy for me. My preferred method's there. How I want it delivered or pick it up, is there. All of those things have become much more important than what they were before the pandemic, because the pandemic now has forced many of us to do some things that we've never done before. And if we've done them a few times over, we've found that it's not as complicated. Now that I've worked out how to do it, I've started establishing new habits. And that means for many of our businesses, our customers will prefer to keep doing things that way, even as we move into a highly vaccinated nation and, fewer restrictions going forward into the new year. Let's have a quick chat now about a couple of other things that have changed dramatically. So, and you're all aware of this, but when you think about your own business, you ought to be matching up, how do customers want you to communicate with them? How do they want to communicate with you? So of course, we've got the good old landline, increasingly coming via sort of, VoIP, via your NBN connection. Mobiles, SMSs on the mobile, but also WhatsApp and Messenger, unless, for 6 or so hours yesterday, they weren't available. And of course, email is still fundamentally the killer app with respect to the internet. But one of the important things here for many of us to be aware of, particularly if our websites are not mobile friendly, is that now 50% of all the traffic that happens on the internet, is happening via these mobile phones. So, there's a whole range of ways now of making your website much more mobile friendly. You don't necessarily need an app. If you think about your own mobile phone, the number of apps you downloaded and maybe used once or twice that are sitting somewhere, 4 or 5 screens away. But it is undoubtedly the case that every business needs a mobile-friendly website, as well as the ability for customers to get information about you and communicate with you via multiple mechanisms, not just an info@email address, or not just via a mobile phone number. Because if they prefer to contact you via Facebook Messenger, because that's what they're using and largely communicating, or WhatsApp, and they find they can't do it with you, or they can't get the latest update on your opening hours very quickly, just like that, they switch and try another business. And if another business is a bit easier to deal with, and then delivered on their promise, so delivered superior perceived value, next time around they need that product or service that you used to provide them with, there's a high probability that you've lost them. They're going to go back to the business that they've most recently been dealt with. So uncertainty is still very high for most Australians, particularly in the capital cities of Melbourne and Sydney. The terminology has been social distancing. I much prefer physical distancing. It's actual physical distance is the thing that reduces the transmission of the virus and any version of its variants, whatever we get after Delta Goodrem. It's physical distance. We can be communicating, reaching out, on a digital basis, maintaining contact, maintaining relationships, leveraging, the preferred communication channels that our customers are now using. Now, I talked about this sort of very briefly, and I was just, this morning I was reading the Herald Sun and the Age print editions here in Melbourne, and having my morning cup of coffee, and I saw this ad over here from Woolworths. So I thought I would just take a quick copy of it, just as an example. It's a big company, one of our big two supermarkets, but look at the sorts of things that they are, emphasizing with respect to a full-page print ad. This costs them about $40,000, this ad, to be in the Herald Sun in Melbourne. So shopping your way, here's a lady with her, what would that be? Maybe some sort of a little terrier doodle of some sort. I'm not exactly sure, but, she's shopping from the convenience of a chair beanbag. Personal shoppers then basically come and over here, wander around the supermarket, put it all together. Now, maybe you want it delivered to you 7 days a week. That can happen via the truck. Now, look, you're quite happy to go down and be in the car park and have them wander it over. You don't want to wait until tomorrow with the truck delivery. That can happen. But even when you're in the store now, if you've created your shopping list, particularly the regular things, in the app that Woolworths got, you can actually sort the stuff that's on your list by the aisle. So you want to minimize the amount of time in the supermarket. You don't want to find that, in the case of Melbourne, it's I can't even think of the jargon now. There's more than 1,000 of these sites where someone's been there at some stage and then were found to be COVID positive. You can actually use the app to help minimize the amount of time that you need to spend in store at Woolworths with respect to that. You can scan the QR code. Most of us didn't know what QR codes were in Australia 18 months or so ago. Now we all know what they are. In fact, they don't even have the website address there to, tell you where to go and get it. Just scan that QR code, and it's going to take you directly where more information is, over to the Apple App Store if you use iOS, or the Google Play Store if you want to get their shopping app, etc. So that's that. The other thing I've got here is, the different sorts of apps that people are using on their mobile phones in terms of communicating or finding out information when they're looking, then perhaps actually shopping. And there's a couple of points I want to make about this one. This one's YouTube. This is particularly for B2B marketers, increasingly important if you sell to other businesses, is to use LinkedIn. Facebook and Instagram, they are the most majority used by most Australians now. So if you're not actively using them, it's important to use them. But there's also a number of businesses that don't have websites. So in Australia, we still have, I think it's 40% of businesses don't have a website. Of those, about 15% have got a Facebook page. Now, I was coaching someone only yesterday who's got a totally Instagram-based retailing business. And they were very, very concerned all of yesterday until the early afternoon when Instagram came back up. So one of the things to keep in mind is not to put all your eggs in one basket, which is in the same thing you do with your business in terms of who your suppliers are, who you've got available from a staffing point of view. Ideally, you're not dependent upon just one customer with respect to your business, that you've got multiple customers, you've diversified. If you rely solely on free platforms provided, let's say by the Facebook empire, which could be Facebook and or Instagram, they can change the rules at any time. Yeah, sure, they go down and then they come back up. But remember, they're in business for themselves, and you provide, they let you use their stuff for free, so they can get a whole bunch of information about who's interacting with you, so then they can sell ads, to marketers that want to reach those people. It's very important to have your own basic mobile-friendly website if you don't have one, so that you do have the ability to control a digital presence and not find yourself totally at the mercy of the big tech companies with respect to what they control. Another big theme, and again, I'd like to, give credit to our corporate partners, Aussie Post and NAB and Telstra and Snap and PEXA. Also congratulate PEXA on recently becoming a public company. But I want to thank you for your enthusiastic partnering over our Buy Local movement with respect to Small Business Australia and the webinars we did at the start of the pandemic and the other free resources and signage, etc., that we've made available to thousands and thousands of small businesses. Because as all of us know, by supporting our local businesses, by buying local, we're giving those businesses every chance of making it through the pandemic. And as all of us know, the heart of our local communities are those small business owners and their families that sponsor the local footy club and donate prizes to the school raffle and the fundraisers. And we have to do everything we can. So I want to thank all those corporates. But then I also want to talk about a great innovation here from one of our partners, PEXA. So each year in Australia, there's about 500,000 plus people sell a house and another 500,000 odd buy a house or an apartment. So a really important financial transaction, often the biggest financial transaction most Australians are ever involved with. But when you think about, you've got to pay a deposit. When you buy a house, it might be 10% that the real estate agent needs to get, and you need to transfer that money, into that bank account after you've succeeded at the auction or that your offer gets accepted. Then there's something called settlement happens, maybe 30 or 60 days later, and you have a conveyancing firm or a property law firm working with you to make sure that everything is legitimate and it all happens in the appropriate way. But this is a great innovation from PEXA, where the PEXA key is a super, super secure way of tracking everything involved from having bought the property to when you can move into the property, and ensuring that all the communications are secure and that the transfers of money are also totally secure. And I know we've got a number of people here in the property services industry, but this is an example of a custom-built, highly secure app to ensure that the benefit of peace of mind, for the property buyer is as high as possible as it can be as they interact with their conveyancers, with their law firms, with the bank that's providing the mortgage, etc. So there's a couple of themes here in terms of what's changed and what's important. Local has never been more important than what it is now. And then high level of security with respect to when you're asking people for money or helping people move money around, things like the PEXA Key app is a great example of innovation from a company to deliver that peace of mind. I now want to talk, a little bit about, these concepts of why customers don't buy, and in particular, why they don't buy something that they don't need to buy. Now, it's one thing, if they're at the lower level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we all need to buy food. We all get hungry. We've got who we like dealing from. Every now and then there might be some, choice that we decide to have as opposed to who our go-to providers are. But in the services area, particularly those of you that market and provide services to businesses, those sorts of purchases might be more discretionary. Do I really need to spend the money on doing some additional training? Can I really just do it myself versus, getting someone to build me a high quality, highly secure website that'll be really mobile friendly? Now, fundamentally, where people don't need to buy things, they may have a need, but they don't necessarily need to buy. There are usually 4 reasons, why people will not buy from you, your team, and your business. The first one is that they don't trust you. So whatever it is you're communicating with them about, they just have that feeling that they can't trust you. The second reason is actually they don't have a need. They might want it. They might want a whole number of things, but in terms of whether it's a real need, they don't have one. Let's say they trust you and they've got the need. Then the question is your proposed service, your proposed solution, will it actually help them? Will it meet the need? So that becomes the third reason. Maybe they trust you, they have the need, but they don't think your proposed service, your solution, your product is actually going to help them. Then finally, if we've got those three things in place, they trust you and your business. Yes, they have the need. They can see how your proposed solution will meet the need. The final and the fourth reason they don't buy is because actually there's no hurry. It's not high in their priority list. It's not, well, they have the need, e.g., we've all got the need to do more effective marketing, but what we're doing seems to be working. It's just not a high enough priority to invest some time and money to potentially do that much more effectively. And from the perspective of a hurry or priority, it's not something that, that particular person, whether they're a business owner or they're buying something, major for their own personal use or their family use, it's not something they really want to fix, problem they want to solve, or it's not a key thing they're looking to achieve that they really do want help with, or it's not something they really want to avoid. So, it's sort of there, but it's not a priority. Now, this question of trust, though, is an important one, because let's say they do have a need and, what you're proposing is going to help, and it is a priority. If they still are not going to commit to buy, paying the money, investing the time, signing up, whatever it might be, it must then fundamentally come back to trust again. That these things are in place, but they just don't trust you, your business, to be able to deliver the solution to meet the need and to be able to do it now. What is it? What makes it up? And then what can you be doing, in your business as it relates to, something like this concept of trust? So we like to talk about the 4 C's. But first of all, we talk about being trustworthy. So it's very difficult to be trusted if, in fact, you're not trustworthy. Now, we've all had the experience of people attempting to sell things to us. It's one of the things we don't like, I think, or many of us don't like with respect to politicians and political parties, where they're trying to sell us something that they think if they just spin it the right way and do X, Y, and Z, that we can be manipulated into wanting and needing and then, wanting to buy it, enthusiastically going forward and buying it. So the first thing is around being trustworthy. And a couple of the key elements around trustworthiness are really, what are these 4 C's here? The ones around character. So people are sort of, thinking about when they're dealing with someone who's representing a business, like, do I trust this person? Like, is the person a person of integrity? Now, how do you do that? Well, you've got to honestly have your customers' interests first over your interest as a business owner in wanting to make a sale. That putting their interest first is a key element of your character. I still remember when I had early sales training in the life insurance industry back in the late 80s. And I still remember this very good professional sales trainer, saying to all of us in the classroom, and I was in charge of marketing for a life insurance company, and I was going through all the sales training to understand, how do our life insurance agents and our financial planners go about doing this? And that particular person said, look, if you wouldn't sell, this product or service to your mother, you shouldn't sell it to any customer. And that stuck with me. Like, assuming my mother had the need, would I sell her this product or service? Would I take her through a process? Because I know that that is going to be in her best interests with respect to buying that product or service from my business. So that's character. The next one is around commonality, and people think like, do I like the person? Am I connecting with them? Do they have empathy with my view of the world? Do they have that sense about what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling? Where's the commonality? So that's important from a how point of view, is around having empathy with the customer's world, with their thoughts, with their feelings. For those of you that are looking to now start re-engaging with customers you haven't seen for a while, just blasting out, one email to all of them, a broadcast, is probably not going to be the most effective way. Thinking about how you might segment or group people based on what you know about them and what they might be dealing with, how you might call some of them up. why you might, organize a 15-minute check-in call to see how they're going and making it about them to learn more about where they're at and what's going on is going to be a much more manifest and tangible way of communicating your commonality with them and your empathy to get a better sense of where things are at before you ever talk about yourself and what the business has available. Competency then is the third C. It's one thing to have the right character, right? I mean well, I'm putting your interests first. But you know what? I'm incompetent. That's the last thing you want. Someone who's going to put your interests first, but they're actually incompetent in terms of what they're going to go forward and deliver. So this question of competency, is there a track record that your business, the product or the service has in providing value? Superior perceived value. How do the perceptions get created? Via other customers just like this person saying they've received those benefits and that was received in a quality way. Those sorts of recommendations from other people that demonstrate the competency. So how you can do that is clearly things like testimonials or referring customers that are thinking about working with you to other clients that you've got that are just like them, where those clients can speak to them and provide a reference to you. The other way of doing it, and this goes back to when we talked about services and RATER, and in particular the T in RATER and the first R, reliability. You can demonstrate competency by the way you go about explaining the way your processes work and how you will go about delivering the benefits. So again, for many people, and if I take an example of property services, the average adult might buy and sell a house every 7 to 8 years. So not a lot of experience. Same when it comes to buying and selling a car. Mattresses are similar as well. It's a similar sort of 7 or 8 years. And by about 8 years, the springs are definitely worn out and you need another one. But they don't have a lot of experience. But how do you set their expectations and walk them through how your process works or what's different about your particular product? Now, those of you that might have been thinking about getting a new bed, there's a lot of advertising happening at the moment for a company called Sleeping Duck. It's well worth spending a few minutes and having a look at Sleeping Duck and their approach and how the whole service is designed to maximize value. They take the old bed away. The videos that they send you to watch on how you unpack a Sleeping Duck, how the non-touch delivery will happen. A couple of automated messages that they send you, that it's now being put inside the van. And again, here's a link to the video to watch on how to unpack it. When they're 30 minutes out, you get another updated SMS that the driver's now 30 minutes away. Here's his mobile phone. If anything's cropped up, you're not going to be there. Here's where to have your other mattress for them to take your mattress away. It's a really good example of the way they communicate the process and then keep in touch with you as you have the experience. And then check out the videos on YouTube on how they demonstrate and prove in terms of the way the mattress is built, why it is superior with respect to the way it will last, et cetera, et cetera. Sleeping Duck, well worth having a look at. Credibility, are you able to understand the complexity of my situation? And then using your competence, your processes, provide me with a solution, an answer, a product or a service that's going to help me meet my goals, whether that's me wanting to fix a problem, which therefore I need a solution, or I want to achieve and accomplish something and your service or product's going to help me do that, or I want to avoid something happening. And a good example of that at the moment would be ensuring that, workplaces have got a COVID-safe plan, that have got the right QR code, that they've got processes for checking their staff in, those sorts of things. Like we all want to avoid, ending up being a business that hasn't put those things in place and then finding that we're subject to being an exposure site and those sorts of things. So again, the how about this on building trust is using your track record, the quality of your digital presence, and the way you're communicating, with people as they're going through the buying process. I want to just share what I think is just a wonderful example, and this is from the start of the pandemic. Many of you would be aware of IGA, Independent Grocers Australia. Port Fairy is a coastal town on the south coast of Victoria. Beautiful little place down near Warrnambool, one of the first settlements in Victoria outside of Melbourne. And what we have here is the franchisee and with one of his customers. Now, the permanent residents of Port Fairy are largely retirees that have moved to go and live down on the Shipwreck Coast in Victoria. It's a very windswept, lovely area, bluestone buildings. And some of you may recall when we had the sort of first nationwide lockdowns that took place back in, I think it was late March 2020. I know it's about 18 or 19 months ago. And one of the things that happened, because there was an enormous amount of uncertainty, people were really frightened. They saw the imagery of what was happening in China, what was happening in Italy. Our borders got closed from international people coming in. And then there was a run on supermarkets. And one of the key items that were getting cleaned out was toilet paper. And very sadly, a very small number of people decided that they would hit supermarkets wherever they could. Some of them drove to places like Port Fairy and basically cleaned the shelves out before the Port Fairy franchisee knew what was going on. Now, what this franchisee went and did off his own back is when the next delivery came in, he broke up the Sorbent, another brand, 8 packs of toilet paper, broke them into groups of 2, put them in paper bags, stored them out the front, and then as his regular senior citizen customers came in, he gave it to them for free. And I just think it's a beautiful example of this case in a crisis where a group of his customers, and he knows them all pretty much by name, it's a local community, so that commonality and direct relationships much easier than some of us that have got businesses that operate nationally and largely over digital channels. But also, that character that this owner displayed to set those things aside. These people were incredibly frightened, panicking, often retirees. They're 40, 35 to sort of 55-year-old children are largely living in the cities, so they're a long way away. They can't directly help them. Things are locked down. Just a brilliant example of character and empathy and commonality in terms of a very practical thing that he did. And there are hundreds and hundreds of these types of examples of particularly what small business owners and small business families have done, in their local communities to support, their local customers through these very turbulent times. I just want to particularly share with the Business Advantage members so that you know what's specifically sitting inside Business Advantage for you after this session. That we have the know-how area. So that's where we have, I think there's, 70 odd related video clips and downloadable tools on particular topics. The couple of topics to have a look at that will help you take what I've taken you through in the webinar into some more education and know-how and then practical implementation. There's a video and a tool called the customer buying process. Now, it's really important to get that and work your way through it to learn about the different stages that many customers go through when they're buying something that they don't buy on a regular basis, or maybe they buy it on a regular basis, but they can no longer get it from the business that did serve them in the past. So have a good look at that customer buying process, and particularly the area around sources of information when customers are doing research, where they're going, what they're looking at, and the importance of ensuring that you are where the customers are, when they're at that stage. Also, the concept of NPS. Now, I know a number of you from some of our corporate partners, I know you corporates use NPS. Now, NPS stands for Net Promoter Score. Again, there's a brief video that explains it, and also a downloadable set of simple questions to use with your customers to let you calculate the Net Promoter Score. Now, there's nothing like, in fact, most businesses, the most valuable asset you have are your loyal customers. Now, when I say loyal, what I mean by that, I mean customers that stay, say, and pay. Now, stay means they keep doing business with you, and they're open to other things that you might be able to do to help them because you deliver them consistently superior perceived value. So that's the stay bit. They also say. So increasingly, online reviews are important if they come from real people. providing testimonials, being available as a referee. And then there's, of course, people that they know that ask them and go, particularly in B2B, listen, I really like your website and the way it's mobile friendly. Who helped you with that? I've been having a lot of challenges with my IT provider, or I've got this thing that I built a few years ago and they said I should have a blog, and we did 2 blog posts, but I haven't got any new customers from it. So the say part of loyal is important, very important, particularly in B2B, because increasingly we go to people that we believe that we trust, that we believe have got the expertise, or have been using some solution provider. And we go, hey, who was that? Where do I contact them? So stay and then say, and then of course pay. We all know ultimately we get what we pay for, and loyal customers, they don't focus on the price or cost side of things because they know they're getting superior benefits. Their perception of the benefits and the quality is higher. So, the quality and the benefits minus the price is superior perceived value. When people just focus on price, the reason they do that is because they don't see any difference with respect to the benefits they're likely to get and the quality of what they're going to get. So you get yourself in a downward spiral. And again, I was coaching someone only recently. He's doing online retail of skincare products over the internet. Target customers are women. And he's realized now, he used to work in a big corporate. He's been at this for 2 years. And he's realized now, once we walked him through the cost of acquiring a customer and how he's discounting, that every sale he makes, he's now making about $600,000 a year, he's literally losing $100,000 worth of cash. And that's because, he's gone after a market, he's pricing to get the traffic, and he's attracting the price sensitive buyer who's always going to shop around. They'll never be loyal. They're always looking for the lowest price. So customer loyalty is important. Some recent research that we did, we found that only 25% of small business owners were consistently getting research from their customers, getting a sense of, is my customer a fan, an advocate? Are they going to stay, say, and pay? Are they neutral? Is it like, blur here or there, give them 7 out of 10? Or are they actually detractors? No, I didn't really like it, overpromised it, thing arrived late, the packaging was awful, the thing was damaged, had trouble getting a refund, et cetera, et cetera. So NPS is a really powerful thing to implement, very easy to implement in any business. With respect to savings, the members know that there's more than now, I think about $7,000 worth of savings for our members on a whole range of services for businesses. Some of the relevant ones here in terms of this customer side of things, you need any hardware, range of cloud-based services. Dell is providing up to 10% off a whole range of their products just for Business Advantage members. So check that out. Webforce 5, the typical good website, mobile friendly. There's going to be no change out of the sort of functionality you want, out of probably $3,000 in reality. There's a 20% saving that Webforce 5 have got available. Action Words, they've got an offer in there to actually review what's on your website and the words that you're using and give you some suggestions on how to prove it. There's also other providers of writing copy, as they say, getting the words right, focusing on the key benefits, making it easy via the key bullet points to move the customer to the next stage of the buying process. Again, members, you can access advice. So there's two tracks on that, of course. You can ask specifically online around a particular question that you've got that you're dealing with. And again, guys, the questions that you've got for me after this, get them into the Q&A or into the chat area, and I'm going to start going through them, and effectively we'll have little mini coaching sessions. But we've got a group of coaches, very experienced in their fields, that work with us at Business Advantage, and you're able to actually book a coach, particularly the digital and marketing coaches that relate to this customer area, and have short 15-minute sessions with them via Zoom to zero in on exactly what you're grappling with, chat about a couple of things, point you in the right direction towards what we've got in know-how, what we've got in the training area. Then, of course, in the training area, skills on improving sales management, sales, managing your suppliers. It's really simple, straightforward training videos there. And of course, the webinars are in there, the replays of these webinars. That's particularly helpful for the members that couldn't attend. They can come and log in at any time.